Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, welcome everyone that's joining. So it's great to see some of you pop in through the site. I can tell who's joining just by your initials, but we're so glad that you've joined us this morning for this session, our Foreign Service panel. My name is Megan Wilson. I am the Chief of Staff at the Cleveland Foundation and a proud board member of Global Cleveland, and I'll be the moderator for this panel today. And we are truly so fortunate to have such accomplished panelists with us this morning. I had the privilege of spending some time with them over the past 2 weeks in preparation for this session, and I'm really excited for you to hear some of their stories and perspectives on foreign service. So I would be remiss if I did not first take a moment to thank our sponsors for the Sister Cities Conference. I would like to especially thank Platform Brewery, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Supply Side Group, Ulmer and Byrne, the Rotary Club of Cleveland, Eaton, Taiwan Sister Cities, CIP USA, Margaret Wong and Associates, Team Neo, the Peace Corps, and 12 Literary Arts. So to start off, I thought I would invite our panelists to just take a few minutes to share their background, their current role, and quickly how they came to be a diplomat in foreign service. So I don't know, perhaps who would like to go first? Consul General Byrne, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Megan, and hello, everyone. It's great to have a chance to speak to you all. It's always exciting to speak to people that are interested in a career in the Foreign Service. I'm the Consul General of Ireland. I'm based out of Chicago, and I've been in my position for about 1 month. So I'm new here, but not new to diplomacy. I've been in the Irish Foreign Service for about 10 years. And I really joined after a period of not being entirely sure what I wanted to do. So it wasn't something I came to straight away. I went to public school. I was the first in my family to complete university. So for me, there were no family members that were involved in diplomacy or had been in foreign service before. I studied languages and European politics. I knew that I wanted a job where I'd get to travel and to meet people from other countries and other cultures, but I didn't know exactly what that job would be. I spent some time in Japan. I got very engaged in writing about Japanese culture. I used to write for a local paper back home in Ireland. And I decided then that what I wanted to be was a journalist, because journalism gave me a chance to meet people, to travel, and to see new places. I then went and studied in London. I studied conflict studies because I wanted to see how to make the world more peaceful, a better place. And really, when I went there, I found out about the role of diplomats and the role of diplomacy in the world. And I applied to be an Irish diplomat. We have a competition. It's an open competition. Anyone can apply once they're an Irish citizen. The first time I did the exam, I failed horribly, and they told me diplomacy may not be for me. And then I went and got some more experiences with international organizations in Brussels. And then the second time I did the exam, luckily I got in. So I suppose I came to diplomacy through quite a circuitous route, but it really has been a very fulfilling career for me. So Megan, that's my story.
Great, thank you. It's a great story. Consul General Jerak, would you like to go next? Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Okay, now okay? Yeah. Yeah, I joined the Foreign Service directly after graduating the International Public Law at the University of Ljubljana, because I have gained a governmental scholarship in my final college year. Since at that time we did not have a diplomatic academy in Slovenia, I went to Madrid to finish additional studies at Spanish Diplomatic Academy, and then my diplomatic path actually began, and yeah, till today, I've earned 33 years, a lot of experiences in the diplomacy. I might go very quickly through my profession and my experiences. My first extraordinary situation came right at the beginning of my career. For example, being 28, one of the youngest consul in our diplomacy, serving far away from home, at that time in Toronto, Canada, which was my first post, my country entered into unwished war by fighting to gain independence from Yugoslavia and strive to get international recognition. You need to know that at that time, Slovenia, many countries, it was 1990, many countries had opposed to recognize new small European countries like Slovenia as a sovereign state. And those were very uncertain times in which diplomacy had a very important role to play. And that there were no playbook scripts, no instructions or scenarios on how and what to do. So you acted as best as you knew and could. And of course, at that time, without cell phones or internet connections. And at that time, I thought nothing worse could happen, but it did. Being posted in Croatia in 1992, I found myself in the middle of the war and bombing, as well as struggle for life and existence of our citizens in Croatia. There were most actually difficult years in my whole career, not only because of the political and security situation there, but mostly because you couldn't influence, neither control the situation, and you were not allowed to act the way you would do in normal circumstances. But on the other hand, I look at always from the positive side. I've got a lifelong experience that I will never forget, as well as a new perspective of the work in the diplomacy. Serving in the Netherlands gave me opportunity to return back to my basic education and the privilege to get to know better the work of international law institutions and courts situated in Den Haag. In addition, it was a very exciting and busy time. Slovenia became a member of the EU and NATO, and later took over the European currency. Great experience and a lot of new challenges, also around the world, including US, if you remember. We experienced the tragedy of 9/11 terrorism, cyber attacks. After that, I entered, similar as my colleague who was involved in European politics, for me, in completely new chapter of diplomacy, European one. Namely, in 2008, Slovenia, as the first member state, took over the presidency of the EU. And as a deputy director for European affairs at the Foreign Ministry, I was a member of the high-ranking working group and had the privilege to participate and be involved in creating and drafting the most important documents in European foreign and security policy. That was a tremendous demanding time, which we spent between our capital and Brussels, knowing and solving old and also new challenges in the EU, as well as in our neighborhood, as good as we could. As I mentioned, another great lifetime experience, but different from the previous ones. Next post has brought me to one of the most influential countries in the EU, Germany. There, I had the chance to closer observe how the Chancellor has been handling and negotiating the domestic and European new challenges, financial and economic crisis at that time, Greece financial problems, with a lot of patience, open dialogue, and respecting arguments of different thinking partners. What still amazed me, I must say, even today. In between, we had to find with different wars taking place around the globe, nuclear threats, terrorism, cyber attacks, climate changes, immigration problems, just to name a few. 1 year ago, I came to the US, and again, believe it or not, I found myself in a very special time. Presidential elections, Black Lives Matters movement, and above all, the pandemic, which has pushed us in a new situation with an open, I think, time framework when and how we will proceed with our work and lives. It is clear that it will never be the same as before, and this is why we had to adjust our way of work, cooperation, meetings, and discussions with people became more innovative in promotion and doing events differently. Maybe I took too much time already, but let me wrap up. Diplomacy as a profession is in a constant changing and faces more and more new, sometimes unknown and unpredictable circumstances, and consequently, new priorities of work. In today's world, diplomacy had to become more flexible, I think, innovative, to quickly adjust to the new situations, and has to address sensitive issues by using much more soft power and tools as before to achieve the same programs and goals. Saying that, I want to point out that diplomacy is not, like we often joke, only attending fancy receptions, traveling, or meeting presidents and kings. I mean, that comes too, if you are at the right time, on the right place, and I had luck. But most of the time, I have to admit, it is a very hard and responsible job, sometimes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On the other hand, it gives you opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people, among them also kings and queens, yes. Prepare speeches, toasts, and talking points for your president, prime minister, or minister, negotiate text of resolutions, and again, helping people in need. And all mentioned is why, believe me, after so many years, I still love my job, and I would never imagine myself working in a different profession. Thank you. I just hope I wasn't too long.
No, that was wonderful. And I think your overview of your career so far really just shows how dynamic this kind of role and this kind of work is.
True.
And I am so excited that we now have Ambassador Mulhall joining us. And we're just going through introductory remarks. Just if you want to spend maybe a minute or two sharing about your career path, Ambassador, and I'm sure that our
Sorry,
watchers would love to.
Whatever, I don't know. Am I being asked a question?
I can't hear either.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, well, the
I can
audience.
hear you, but
Very interesting.
you're
Okay.
very broken.
Thank you for the thank you for the chat. So, just a comment to the panelists. The panelists can't hear me. Oh, there's Supriya. She's our
You want me to?
superstar.
Yeah, my.
Everyone? If you would like to refresh your browser once,
Can
maybe
you
that
hear
will...
me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
But can you hear me? I see Consul General shaking his head.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, perhaps we'll just proceed. Ambassador, are you able to hear us? Looks like he might still be getting set up. I don't know.
Okay.
Honorary
Can you
Consular
hear me?
Bublys, would you like to share a little bit about your
Can
background?
you hear me now?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Great. I'm Ingrida.
I can vaguely hear you. You're very broken.
Ooh, okay. I'm Ingrida Bublys, and I'm very honored to be present in this panel for Foreign Services. And just a little background on me. I was born in Lithuania, in the northeastern European country, and I came to the United States as a small child. My parents fled the country as a result of the Soviet occupation.
Hi, I'm on the line. I can barely hear what the question's being asked, and obviously you can't hear me, right?
We can hear you. Can I go on?
Yes.
Okay. I finished all my schooling and obtained my university degree right here in the States. Presently, I am the Honorary General Consul for the Republic of Lithuania in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. Also the president of IB International, which is a consulting company that brings together businesses in Lithuania and the United States and also in other countries. I was appointed as the Honorary Consul by the government of the Republic of Lithuania in 1996. I was the first Honorary Consul appointed to serve in the US when Lithuania became a free country. Today, Lithuania shares 22 honorary consuls all over the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. That's excellent. And then I think, let's see if Ambassador Mulhall, are you connected, or looks like he might have frozen. Well, how about we also have a retired ambassador with us, Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley. Would you like to go next? Let's see. Perhaps maybe we should just move along a little bit while we get folks reconnected here. And so I think the next set of questions that I was really thinking through and thinking that our audience might be curious to hear about is, what does it really mean to be a diplomat? I think it might be worth spending a few minutes exploring what that day-to-day might look like. I don't know if you'd like to go first, Consul General Byrne.
Sure, thanks, Megan. And I think it's quite clear from today that one of the challenges we have as diplomats is we have to change as the circumstances change. So normally, and I think we've heard from the Consul General and Honorary Consul General that so much of what we do is about convening people and bringing them together. So there are challenges with new technology, but I think we're getting there. I suppose first and foremost, what a diplomat does is the job of a diplomat is to represent the interests and values of our country in a host nation, be it a friendly country or one that may not be so friendly. Thankfully, as an Irish Consul General in the US, it's a great posting. And really what my work is as a Consul General is to connect Ireland with a region. So I don't connect Ireland with the whole country, I just connect Ireland with the region. So my consular region is 12 states of the US Midwest. We're always based in one, generally a large city, but we travel around quite extensively to meet with the community. I suppose day to day, what we do is, first and foremost, we look after our citizens. So there's a very large number of Irish citizens and Irish passport holders that would live in the consular region. So what we are essentially is we're a hub for them to get new passports. If they ever fall into any difficulty, we're here to help, and really just to help them navigate through living in a different place. I suppose that's the first piece. The second piece is we connect with local and state authorities. So I'm a connection point for Ireland with the various cities and states in my region. And really what I try to do is to try and build stronger relationships between Ireland and the major cities and states of the American Midwest. And one of the things, and I'm sure the other Consuls General and Honorary Consul General will say, that is incredibly helpful in the work that we do is, I suppose, the work of our diaspora. So there's a huge number of Irish people that would live over in the States, in the Midwest, either Irish born or people of Irish heritage, so whose ancestors would have come over to the US a number of years ago, or maybe 100 years ago or so. And really what we find for an Irish diplomat is that those diaspora organizations have really built up such strong connections of friendship and culture with Ireland and with the various cities and regions in which they live in the US. So I know that sister cities is obviously something that's hugely important. And for us as diplomats, sister cities are phenomenal, because what we really have are citizen diplomats. So, citizens of the US or of Ireland who don't work formally for the diplomatic service, but who really help to build those people-to-people connections and explain the cultures and share the work of our two nations. So that's something that I would do, working very closely with those. I might pass the floor over. I don't know if one of the other Consuls General might want to add something to that. Thanks, Megan.
Sure. Honorary Consul General Bublys, would you like to to share about yours, your role daily?
I'd love to. I'm not a career diplomat, but let me tell you, representing the Republic of Lithuania, I'm very honored, and my title says honor, but at the same time, I have various duties, even as an honorary consul. I serve as a non-political representative of international diplomacy between my country and the United States. My tasks are bilateral relations in trade, economic, cultural, between the sending country and the United States. And also to look after the affairs of the constituents in the states that I serve. To achieve my duties, it's very important to have very good relations with local and state governments, and also to be active in various organizations. So when the time arises, I do have contacts. And, talking about organizations, I'd like to thank the Cleveland Rotary Club for being a sponsor of this great conference. And also to the listeners to mention, look up the Cleveland Rotary Club and love to have you as members. It's a great networking group and do great things here in the city of Cleveland. Now, beyond that, we honorary consuls do share information with other honorary consuls and also take guidelines from the ambassador and our foreign ministry. We set up relationships with universities and various cultural institutions. And we seek opportunities always to lecture about our country because, not many people have heard of Lithuania or know Lithuania. So also in the given time, when we talk about our daily duties, I am not a career consul. So my duties will be, I'll get a call someday from a Lithuanian asking, regards information traveling to Lithuania, or maybe regarding visas, or need of translations, or maybe visiting somebody in jail that got in trouble, one of our constituents. And it goes on, and sometimes we even have to, our network, find jobs for our new immigrants that have settled in the states that I represent. Cleveland has a very large Lithuanian community with many organizations, Saturday schools, folk dancing groups, ensembles, Lithuanian parish, Lithuanian community center. So I try to participate as much as I can also in Lithuanian organizations and their activities and to support their efforts. So our honorary consuls also have duties just like the general consuls that are with us today.
Thank you. And I am happy to see Ambassador Mulhall back and Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley. So it looks like your connection is much stronger now, which is excellent. So I don't know if you would like to take a moment, Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley, maybe share with the audience a little bit about your background. And I have another question teed up for you, but I'll let you share your background first.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It is a privilege to join such an experienced panel and from around the world. So that's awesome. If you saw my bio at any point, you know that I am a Cleveland girl. I grew up in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, for most of my education, although I've lived in Shaker Heights and I've lived in the city of Cleveland as well. I didn't have diplomacy in my background at all. My older brother went into the military, as did both of my siblings, but I got interested in foreign affairs because Cleveland Heights High requires a language. I took Hebrew to be in class with my best friend, Terry Perlman, and learned about the Middle East via language. And turns out I'm pretty good at languages, really enjoyed the experience. Went off to college and did my sophomore year abroad at Tel Aviv University so that I could use the Hebrew. And when I finished my undergraduate degree, I went into the Peace Corps, which is a way that many Americans get into foreign affairs. Peace Corps, as you know, is a voluntary service where You go around the world and often teach English as a second language, you do agricultural work. Increasingly in Eastern Europe, you might do some technical IT work, something like that. But it is a volunteer organization. They will also train you in a language if you don't come with one already. So after 2 years of Peace Corps, where I served in the Sultanate of Oman, in an Arab country in the Persian Gulf, then I was truly hooked by the Middle East. Did my graduate studies at Johns Hopkins University, again, making sure I kept the Arabic up, and eventually joined our diplomatic service. Most of my career has been in the Middle East. My first assignment was Baghdad, Iraq, under Saddam Hussein, which was a very tough assignment, as you can imagine, in a police state. I was a human rights officer, which was very difficult to do at the time. As the Consul General from Slovenia mentioned, I had the opportunity to negotiate a consular treaty on visa access, which was great for a young officer, my first tour. I got an American citizen out of jail in Iraq, and took care of American citizens who were living there, as well as issuing visas for people who wanted to visit the United States. In Indonesia, I learned Indonesian at our Foreign Service Institute, because we will train you in any language that you need before you go out to an overseas assignment. And I was responsible for Muslim organizations and for student groups, because there had been a very violent change of government in Indonesia, and it was led by students. So that was one of the groups of the population that we kept an eye on. Continuing on, off to Cairo, one of my favorite places in the world, based on history and culture and language, and a very rich political situation there. I was also the human rights officer and the labor officer. I also had the opportunity to volunteer for a beauty pageant. We had a couple of American citizens who came to Egypt. Fred Lebeau, if any of you are runners, he was the one who started the Boston Marathon. And he came to Egypt to start the Cairo Marathon. And it was first run in 1988 or 89. And they started the beauty pageant for Miss World and Miss Universe. And I was reporting on this because I was responsible for helping the United States understand the political and economic situation in Egypt. And this was a way that they were trying to broaden their tourism by starting a marathon and this beauty pageant. So I became the director of contestants while I was in Cairo. As a young diplomat, I was working with the Egyptian girls on preparing for the evening gown set of the pageant, and I was one of the judges for the bathing suit part, because there were no male judges at that time. From Egypt, I worked in Washington for the Secretary of State as a special assistant in charge of Africa and the Middle East during very turbulent times. From there on to Tel Aviv, where I covered the Gaza Strip. That was probably one of my most challenging assignments. I think most of them are, because I like living in interesting places. I was originally offered London, which is a lovely place. I'm sure you all agree. But as a young diplomat, I was far more interested in going someplace challenging. I thought when I was an old person of maybe 40, maybe then I would be interested in going to London. So I broke that assignment to go to Baghdad. So all of these experiences in the Middle East led up to me being Consul General in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the first woman to head up a diplomatic mission. Also very exciting. And as I'm sure you've heard from everyone else, because I had trouble hearing, I'm sorry, so I'll hear everyone's comments during the discussion period. It's a dangerous business, as well as an interesting, challenging, and fun lifestyle and commitment to public service. So the fact that I got to observe a election in the Gaza Strip when Yasser Arafat was elected, and help put together election observer teams, or volunteering for a beauty pageant in Egypt, or surviving a terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia, all of these things are typical experiences for diplomats. And one of the joys and pleasures of this work is that you can have an impact on people's lives immediately. If you're doing visa work, which many people say is just the toughest job to be doing in the Foreign Service, because you're often telling people, no, you cannot have a visa to visit the United States. No, you're not going to make your niece's wedding. No, you're not going to be able to come for medical care because we have to be certain that you are only coming for a limited period of time. And many people apply for visas without that intent, and it is our responsibility as diplomats to make those decisions. It's important to treat people respectfully, humanely, compassionately when you are telling them no, but recognizing that you may be the only American. If you tell them no, you're the only American they're going to meet. And that makes that job really important. So whether you're having that and saying yes, sometimes you get to say yes, that has an impact on people's lives. When I was a young officer in the Gaza Strip, I found out that there weren't many copies of the laws that governed the Gaza Strip. I was able to work with colleagues at the Agency for International Development. They gave me $25,000, and I had 500 copies of Gazan law reproduced so that we could put it in high schools, we could put it in libraries, we could put it in the 2 universities. I did that because I was a human rights officer, and the head of the Palestinian Human Rights Organization told me it was difficult to help people achieve their rights when they didn't know what those rights were, when they didn't know what the laws were that governed their daily lives. I wasn't an ambassador at the time, I was a mid-level officer, but this was something tangible that really could have an impact on people's lives. And that is one of the joys of this business. I came in to be an ambassador. That's when I walked through the doors the first day. I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to represent the United States of America. Everybody doesn't get there, but what I can tell you is however far you get, whether you become an ambassador or go even beyond that, the journey is exciting, it's challenging, it's fulfilling, and it's fun. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. I think the varied experiences that you just shared, I know we had commented earlier that it's such a dynamic role, but I think that takes it to a whole other level, helping out with different beauty pageants and just interesting experiences. And I see we might have lost Ambassador Mulhall, but I was hoping to ask him, and then I just want to open it up to the rest of the committee. As we think about the role of a diplomat, I think from what each of you has highlighted so far, there is a very poignant importance for that particular role on the international stage. So I was just wondering if maybe you wanted to take a moment to speak towards why it really matters to go into foreign service. Why should the next generation consider it as a career path? It sounds exciting and interesting to me, but perhaps from your words, I think our audience might like to better understand from your perspective.
Who would you like to start?
Actually, let's see. Ambassador Mulhall, are you connected and good? Can you hear us? That's okay. I would say
Byrne hear us, but and he said he'll be able to answer.
Oh, so okay. So he has the questions.
Yeah, so if you can tell me any questions, I will send him text and he will be able to.
Oh, sure. Well, I think the next question that would be really interesting from his perspective, first we'd love to hear his background, because I know when we had talked earlier this week or last week, he had shared with me that he was about a different career and then wound up as a diplomat. So I think some of our audience might appreciate hearing his background from that vantage point. And also the importance of becoming a diplomat. Why should the next generation consider it? And I just want to thank the audience for your patience with this.
Okay.
There's Ambassador. Excellent.
I can't see anyone on the call, but maybe you can text me. Someone can text me if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. So I will start by, okay, I gather you can hear me and you may even be able to see me. I can't see anybody. But anyway, I apologize for this technological meltdown, but I did my best, but couldn't quite conquer the system, the hop-in system. So apologies for that. Okay, look, you asked about my background. I benefited from something that happened in Ireland about 53 or 4 years ago when I was a boy. I'm referring to what I call, I think rightly, educational revolution, whereby initially high school education was made free of charge, no fees for high school education. And then subsequently, university education became more freely available. So when I started university in 1972, most of the people that I encountered at University College Cork in the south of Ireland were like me, young men and women who were experiencing the joy of being the first members of their family ever to attend a university or a third level institution. It's a very exciting time for Ireland, and it leads me to conclude that if there's one thing any country would do well to invest in, that is education. Because the Irish investment in education has paid rich dividends. It took a long time, mind you. The return wasn't quick in coming, but it did come. And when it came, it transformed our country from, in the 1980s, we would have had the least productive economy in Western Europe. Today, we have one of the most productive economies. And that is largely down to the impact of having a highly educated workforce, the product of the educational revolution I referred to at the start of my remarks. When I went to university, my horizons, of course, expanded, as everyone's does. If they don't, there's something wrong with you. So I started to see the world through a different lens and with bigger possibilities than my initial thought, which was that I would go into teaching and go back to my hometown and become a secondary teacher there. I started to see possibilities opening up. And one of those was a career in diplomacy. I didn't have any knowledge of the world of diplomacy. Again, no member of my family had ever been even in the public service. We weren't a public service family. So even going into the public service was a big thing for someone like me to do. But I was quite keen on the idea of public service. I wasn't that keen, to be quite honest, on the idea of diplomacy, because I didn't have this great urge to live outside of Ireland for years and years in my career, as I've done. I've lived about 2/3 of my adult life outside of Ireland. But I saw the opportunities. I was persuaded by a friend of mine at college who was a bit more worldly wise than I was, that I should apply for this job, that it was made for me. I didn't believe that, and when I went for interview, I didn't have any great hopes that I would be chosen, but I was. There were about 1,000 people went in for the competition, and I was one of the top 10 who were offered jobs. That was the size of our service at that time, 10 recruits a year roughly, so quite a small service. Once I got into the Foreign Service, I started to realize the opportunities and the challenges and the joy of being in a position to represent your country around the world. And I'll never forget my first week of my first posting in New Delhi. I was a callow youth out from Ireland. The ambassador asked me to go along to a reception hosted by the ambassador, if I remember correctly, I'll never forget, of the United Arab Emirates. It was my first ever diplomatic reception. I remember going into that room. It was only a week in New Delhi, so I had no knowledge of anyone, I had no network. I had to go and break into conversations and get myself involved in discussions with people, so I wouldn't be standing there all alone. That was an early lesson that you can't, in diplomacy, you can't stand back and be a shrinking violet. You have to be willing to put yourself forward and to represent your country. And I got a great kick out of representing Ireland in India during my first posting, even though I was a very junior diplomat. And since then, I've been in many places doing different jobs. I was Consul General in Edinburgh, Scotland, which was my first head of mission posting. Then I became ambassador to Malaysia, from where I also covered Vietnam, Thailand, Laos. and Burma, Myanmar. Then I moved on to Germany. I was ambassador in Germany during the financial crisis of 10 years ago, when there was a lot of pressure on Ireland as a country that was affected very strongly by the financial crisis. And we had to argue the case that Ireland was a country that was going to come through this. It was a good bet for succeeding to emerge from that crisis in a positive way. And we've done that. In the last 5 years, we've had the fastest growing economy in the European Union. From Germany, I went to London. I became the ambassador to the United Kingdom, or the Court of St. James, as they call it, in London. And I spent 4 years there. Highlights of my time in London were the state visit, the first ever state visit by an Irish president to the United Kingdom. I had the pleasure of being involved in that state visit and of staying for 3 nights at the Queen Elizabeth's residence at Windsor Castle, which was a great experience for a diplomat, for any person really. And then 3 years ago, I came to Washington as ambassador to the United States. So I have had a very good career. I've served in 3 of our top postings. I've enjoyed every minute of it. When people ask me, what was your favorite posting? I always say, well, for different reasons, different places were my favorite. But I think overall, I'd have to say that the posting here in America has been my favorite posting because of just the great opportunities here. The manner in which you can travel around this country in normal times, of course, not now. You meet people from all walks of life. In particular, I meet Irish Americans. There are 35 million Irish Americans, and they're always happy to see me, and I'm extremely well received, and that makes your job, of course, a lot more pleasant when people are actually positive towards you, as Irish Americans are about Ireland and about the Irish ambassador. Any Irish ambassador, it's not me, it's the post I occupy that really makes the difference. But I try and do the job to the best of my ability. I give it my all. I often say to people, well, when I was growing up, my body wasn't strong enough to be a sportsman that could represent Ireland. My voice wasn't good enough, wasn't sweet enough to be in the Eurovision Song Contest. So diplomacy was the area I discovered where I could actually do a patriotic job for my country. I was always patriotic growing up, but I never really understood how I could channel that patriotism into a career. And now I've had that for the last 42 years. Okay, I've been asked, why should the next generation choose diplomacy? Well, here's my answer. Diplomacy is the cement that binds the international community together. And when that cement or glue, use whatever image you like, dissolves or is under pressure, the international system is not functioning properly. And I suppose in today's world, where we've got so much information, but also so much conflict, we need international organizations and diplomats to be that binding element that brings countries together. It's never easy, by the way. I mean, I served for 2 years at the Conference for Security and Cooperation in Europe towards the end of the Cold War in the 1980s. It was tough going, dealing with people with a different ideology. But in the end, we managed to find common ground. It takes a long time. And peace, as the great Irish poet W.B. Yeats said in a different context, peace comes dropping slow. There is no quick fix in diplomacy. And if you're of the view that you want to do something where you can, have a beginning, a middle, and an end in a few weeks, don't come into diplomacy. Occasionally that happens, but not very often. Mostly you're dealing with a process that goes on maybe beyond your posting and maybe finalized by somebody who follows you into your job. But you're part of a process, and you can take pride and should take pride in that process and in what it can and should achieve. At the moment, the world is in a fairly parlous state, I would say. A lot of political differences all over the world, a lot of sharp conflict situations, and in my view, at least, that makes diplomacy in the coming years more important than it's ever been. And I think that to equip yourself for diplomacy, here are the qualities you have to have. The first is, you won't be surprised to hear, patience. you're one who's, who's jumping up and down looking for things to happen, I think diplomacy is not probably your area. Secondly, persistence. You've got to set your goals and pursue them with great persistence. You've got to be able to analyze what's happening in the world. You've got to be informed about the range of issues that impact upon the situation you're trying to analyze. So you've got to be a kind of a scholar to some degree, not an academic, but someone who's willing to read the evidence and willing to put the hours in to inform themselves properly of the situation they're trying to deal with. And then finally, there are many other words I could use, but I would say flexibility and adaptability. If you're someone who wants a predictable life, forget it. Choose something else. If you're someone that doesn't like change, do something else. If you're someone like me who's come to enjoy a new challenge every few years, diplomacy might just be the job for you. But you've got to be flexible. You've got to be willing to arrive in a new country and to look at that country and not judge it purely by the standards of your own country, but try to understand what that country is driven by, and then try to connect with that country to the benefit of your own nation state. So those are my recommendations. They're not unique. I'm sure you'll hear them from many others, including the panelists here today, but that's the fruit of my experience. I'm probably going to have to leave. I'm going to have to leave in about 10 minutes. So if there's another question, I'm happy to answer it, but I have to go to another event. I have another function starting at noon, so I'll have to leave about a few minutes before noon.
Sure.
So, but thank you for your attention. Thank you for inviting me to take part.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador. We appreciate your comments and your perspective and your history. And I think you brought up I think you're taking the conversation in a helpful direction, especially for our audience. And I want to maybe ask the next question to Consul General Byrne about what skills, from your perspective, would be helpful for any of the folks in the next generation as they think about a career in foreign service or as a diplomat. I know we heard some from Ambassador Mulhall, but I don't know if you want to share any others that come to mind.
Sure. Very happy to, and thanks, Megan, for the question. I think one of the things you'll learn in diplomacy, that there's a great cohort and network of senior diplomats who always share their experience with you. So I'm actually going to take something that former Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley and then my own Ambassador Mulhall said. And I think that's two things. It's the importance of good communication and just to cement that, it's the importance, I think, of languages as well. Because languages, I think, really open a door not just to the person you're speaking to, but to the culture that they represent. So I think my advice, I suppose, to any young person that's thinking of a career in diplomacy would be language classes are, you never go wrong with a language class. And I imagine I can see Consul General Jerak nodding her head there. It really opens those doors to be able to, to speak to someone in their own tongue. It shows that you're open to their culture and interested. And it also gives you a greater insight into what's happening and a greater ability to access newspapers and media reports and conversations in coffee shops and bars and elsewhere. So I think communication skills, languages, and I think as well, multicultural experiences. You don't need to leave your hometown to have a multicultural experience. I think this Global Cleveland Conference is a perfect example of that. It's about finding those connections with other cultures where you can and where you are. So much, and I'll go back to the Sister Cities example, so much of what a diplomat does is to try and form connections and create understanding. And that can be done just down the street from you. You don't have to go abroad or internationally, although it can be fun to go abroad and internationally as well to do it. But I think that's the thing: good communication, multicultural experiences, and languages. I think those are the three that I would underline. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And I think just to build on that question too, because I'm sure we'll have folks in the audience that are curious about this kind of career and end up going towards it. And I'm sure we'll have some that are listening in and might select something else. And so I was wondering, Consul General Jerak, from your perspective, what skills are transferable from being a diplomat to some other career tracks that folks might be considering? It sounds like there could be some, but from your perspective, I think the audience would like to hear what some of those particular skills would be.
I would put your question in an opposite way. I think that the diplomacy as a profession needs to be implemented through the horizontal approach. Diplomacy became, especially in the last decades, a profession that needs different knowledges and therefore different skills, experts, and professions. Diplomacy is, as I said already, in a change and must adjust to new circumstances and tasks. So even 10 years ago, we didn't speak about the economic diplomacy, science diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, environmental diplomacy, and this kind of things. More and more media communication experts are needed. Even psychologists, for example, to deal with the crisis situation at the embassies, the war zones or something like this. This is something new that it was developed through the new needs actually and the changes that we have to have. So I would say there are such a different professions that they can, even if translators, for example, they don't need to be a standard one, but still we need them sometimes, right? As my colleague says, we are learning languages as much as possible. We will never be a native. You hear my Slavic language, which my kids are hating, but this is how it is. I mean, the most important is that people understand me, what I'm saying. And we will never be, of course, the native. Appreciations to Ambassador Abercrombie with so many difficult language to learn about the career. And so I think there is various professions who can enter diplomacy if they want to have this job, if they want to, as my colleagues before said, travel, analyze, learn languages, discover multiculturalism, traveling, and of course, are patient and ready to help people in trouble situation. And yeah, this is it, I would say.
Thank you. And I just want to note that we have a little less than 10 minutes left in this session. So if anybody from the audience is listening and there's a burning question that you might have, I think we'll have time for maybe one or two. So feel free to drop that in the chat. I'll be watching. But I think the last question that I have positioned for just the panelists here would be if there was one piece of wisdom or guidance that you could impart with the audience based on your careers and perspectives, what might that be? And I'd like to start with Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley first.
Wisdom or guidance? Well, I think we've had quite a lot already shared with regard to the need to focus on doing a great job, on languages, on patience and flexibility. I guess two things I continue to come back to. One is you should start now to be prepared to advocate for yourself. A lot of people, particularly women and minorities, have been brought up to believe that if we just do the work, if we work hard and do our best, that will be recognized and we will be allowed to move ahead. That is often not the case. You have to be confident in what you offer, what your talents, your abilities are, what you bring to the table. You have to be prepared to say, what are the three things that you do really well, that if somebody is looking to hire someone or add to an office or a project or a program or an opportunity, you should be ready to take advantage of a meeting, an opportunity to say, you should think about me because I can do X, Y, and Z. I will do X, Y, and Z. I'm really great at X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. Regardless of what profession you pursue, that's going to stand you in excellent stead. So being able to advocate for yourself. And the other thing I would urge you to do is to pursue something that gives you joy. A lot of people think if I study this, if I take this assignment, I'm going to get to the top. And I can give you 3 examples. I don't know how sad they feel about it, but of people who had a very specific track in mind about what they wanted to do with their career, and sometimes circumstances prevented them from doing it. Sometimes their own missteps, sometimes things outside of their control. But it brought home to me fairly early that you've got to enjoy the journey. You may not get to the destination you think you're going to get to. So make sure you're doing something that you enjoy so that you don't have any regrets that you wasted time or you did something that you didn't really want to do. This life of diplomacy for me is one that I enjoyed almost every single day. Every time, every job, you're going to have some crap days. But almost every single day, I woke up with joy in my heart about what is going to happen today. And that flexibility, that change, that you had this plan when you were heading into the office, and when you got there, the day flipped completely because something happened in the country, something happened in Washington, and you've got to respond to it. So I love that. I love that change. I love that challenge. And if you find something that gives you that kind of joy, guaranteed you're going to be successful. And people want to work with happy people. You know, if there's students or if there are people in the office and they're frowning and they're not really enjoying it and they're complaining about it, nobody wants to work with them. So find what you love, do it, and I guarantee you, you're going to find success. That's it.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think there was some consensus among the panelists because I saw some head nodding at the bits of wisdom that you were sharing. And I just maybe want to position that same question for Honorary General Consul Bublys. If you have just maybe a comment or two, some guidance. I know we're closing in on the hour close, and we do have one question in the chat, but let's go to you first, Honorary Consul General.
Well, even though we are not career consuls, but anyways, we honorary consuls also lead a very exciting life because we are actually a lot part of the diplomatic corps. And also we get to sometimes even take care of some of the issues that either the ambassadors or the general consuls can't handle. For instance, let's say my ambassador comes into Cleveland. Who opens the door for him to meet the mayor of the city of Cleveland? The honorary consul. So we feel sometimes also very diplomatic, even though we're not career consuls. And also it's a very exciting, and it's networking, getting to know people, and to love the country that you represent. I think that's what it all puts together into a beautiful basket, and it makes you a much richer person besides the business or the career that you have outside being an honorary consul.
Excellent. Thank you. And just with 2 minutes left, I want to make sure maybe we could hear one piece of advice from both of the consul generals. Consul General Jerak, do you want to go first? And this will really be what closes out the session before I do some of the formal housekeeping at the end.
I would repeat the words of the Ambassador Abercrombie-Winstanley, because go for it if you enjoy the things that we pointed out. If you are interested in the things that we are doing, that diplomats are doing, and love traveling, love other countries, and all what was said about the character of the person, go for it. Don't be afraid. Sometimes it is rough. Sometimes is it hard to get the day through. But most of the time, as everybody said, everybody who is in the job, we love it. We enjoy it every day, as Ambassador said. So go for it, be brave, and start it. I'm sure you're gonna love it.
Thank you. And Consul General Byrne, do you have anything else to add?
Other than to say it's very unfair to put me after those interventions. They were really wonderful. I think one thing I would say, and it's not, it's maybe not the best note to finish on, is expand your comfort zone. I think Ambassador Mulhall said it as well. It's about, throwing yourselves in. You throw yourselves into a situation. I don't like the term go outside your comfort zone, because I think when you go outside it, you're expanding your comfort zone. Something that's uncomfortable the first time, you get used to it. So I think expand your comfort zone, you'll have phenomenal experiences. And as the ambassadors and consuls general said, just go for it. You know, follow your passions, and it'll lead you to a place that'll make you happy. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. And just a reminder for our audience, we just were able to share the hour with retired United States Ambassador Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley, Consul General of Ireland in Chicago, Kevin Byrne, Consul General Slovenia in Cleveland, Alenka Jerak, Honorary Consul General for the nation of Lithuania, Ingrida Bublys, and Ambassador of Ireland to the United States, Daniel Mulhall. And I would be remiss if I didn't close out the session without thanking our sponsors that really made the Sister Cities Conference happen. So thank you to Platform Brewery, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Supply Side Group, Ulmer and Byrne, Rotary Club of Cleveland, Eaton, Taiwan Sister Cities, CIP USA, Margaret Wong and Associates, Team Neo, the Peace Corps, and 12 Literary Arts. And thank you for tuning in. I am Megan Wilson, proud board member of Global Cleveland, and thankful to have shared this time with you all. So thank you.